Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. In his novel 1984, George Orwell wrote, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." Now let's take a look at the evidence. In 1989, the United Nations said we only had until the year 2000 to stop global warming. Entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if the global warming trend is not reversed by the year 2000. Governments have a 10-year window of opportunity to solve the greenhouse effect before it goes beyond human control. We're now 22 years past the United Nations deadline, and none of the things they predicted have happened. But the United Nations is undaunted by their past failures. They say that we're having a climate emergency and that we're running out of time to stop global warming. This is a climate emergency, said the United Nations Secretary General, adding that wealthy economies and corporations are not just turning a blind eye, they are adding fuel to the flames. Let's take a look at the data now to see if it backs up his claim of a climate emergency. According to the University of Maine Climate Change Institute, Earth's temperature today is right at the 1979 to 2000 average. A lot of the Earth, including where I live here in Wyoming, is actually quite cold today. This is what the neighborhood looked like yesterday. Temperatures yesterday were right at the January average. Nighttime temperatures in the United States so far this year have been far below normal and close to record cold. The percentage of nights below 20 degrees Fahrenheit has been second highest on record after 1895. And afternoons have been cold as well in the United States. The percent of days above 60 degrees Fahrenheit has been close to a record low so far this year. Note that for the last 5 years in a row, January through May temperatures in the United States have been far below normal. And the forecast for the rest of the month is looking extremely cold for most of the United States. But the United Nations wants us to reject the evidence of our eyes and ears. At the Nobel Prize ceremony in 2007, laureate Al Gore predicted the Arctic would be ice-free by the year 2014.
Another new study to be presented by U.S. Navy researchers later this week warns it could happen in as little as 7 years. 7 years from now. In the last few months, it has been harder and harder to misinterpret the signs that our world is spinning out of kilter.
Let's take a look at the data now to see how his forecast turned out. This is where Al Gore made that forecast 15 years ago, and there's more ice now than there was when he made the prediction. In fact, Arctic sea ice extent is higher now than it was on this date in 1989. 1989 being the year when the United Nations said we only had 10 years to save the planet from global warming. Sea ice extent today is just below the 1981 to 2010 median. There's no evidence to support the idea that the world is overheating. The United Nations wants people to believe that we can get rid of fossil fuels, but there's no evidence to support that idea either. There's been a huge increase in the world's use of coal, oil, and gas over the past decade, while wind and solar have made almost no progress. There's very good reason for this. Wind and solar are not reliable. The sun doesn't shine all the time, and the wind doesn't blow all the time. We can't base a modern civilization around intermittent, unreliable energy. The great American physicist Richard Feynman said, "For a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations, for nature cannot be fooled." But the United Nations is not interested in reality. They're attempting to fool Mother Nature with technologies that are guaranteed to fail. Whatever the United Nations is doing has nothing to do with climate, and it has nothing to do with benefiting the human race. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this massive fraud for the past 14 years. You can visit Toto, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at RealClimateScience.com.